What's up, fighting fans? Tips from the Fight IQ channel. Today we're coming back for another episode of the Fight IQ show. Today it's time for the weekend preview. As you might hear, I'm a little bit sick, but I couldn't let you guys down. I'm gonna help you to choose which fights to watch in priority, and this week it's not gonna be easy because the fight cards are stacked. I'm gonna pick my favorite three, and then later I will mention also some other fights that might be worth your time. So let's get ready to rumble. So on the menu for this weekend we have the UFC 298 in Anaheim on Saturday 17th, the One Fight Night 19 in Bangkok on Friday 16th, KSW 91 in Liberec, Czech Republic on Saturday 17th, and the Curiel vs Nontshinga boxing card in Mexico on Friday 16th. A lot of action with really good matchups. I struggled a little bit with the order of the top three and which fights to put in the top three, but I also have a clear number one. Number 3, Robert Whittaker vs Paulo Costa, the co-main event of the UFC 298 in Anaheim, Saturday 17th. And that's the cream of the middleweight division right here. Should have gotten this one 3 years ago, but injuries got in the way. So let's introduce the fighters, should we? First we have Robert the Ripper Whittaker, 33 years old, 24-7, 14 finishes. He's at the UFC since 2012 after winning the Ultimate Fighter season. He first started as a welterweight, but it was not the right weight class for him, and he lost 2 in a row versus Kurt McGee and then Stephen Thompson. Then he moved to middleweight in 2014 and started an incredible win streak. 6 fights, including wins over Brad Tavares, Uriah Hall, Derek Brunson and Jacare Souza. And that led him to the middleweight gold in 2017, where he beat Yoel Romero via unanimous decision. He won the rematch almost 1 year later to make his first title defense. Unfortunately for him, he lost his title in October from 2029, getting knocked out by Israel Adesanya. He became a bit the gatekeeper of the division after that. People felt that he was declining, but he kept pushing people away. He dominated Darren Till and Cannonier in 2020 and then Gastelum in 2021. And getting rid of the competition got him a rematch versus Israel Adesanya in February from 2022. He tried to get back his belt, but he lost via unanimous decision. Since then, he had 2 fights, a win via unanimous decision versus Marvin Vettori, and more recently a loss via TKO versus Dricus du Plessis, the new champion by the way, in July from 2023. Whittaker is a really complete, athletic and experienced fighter. He will now have to show that he's still on top of the division by facing Paulo Costa. Paulo the Eraser Costa, 32 years old, 14-2, 12 finishes. He arrived at the UFC in March from 2017 and became soon the new middleweight sensation by destroying his opponents. 5 wins between 2017 and 2019, 4 KOs including Johnny Hendricks and Uriah Hall. And all of this got him a title shot versus Israel Adesanya in September from 2020, but he got humiliated by the champ, TKO'd in round 2 and mocked by his opponent. I think it was a tough loss for him. Since then, he is a bit of an enigma, a lot of cancelled fights due to injuries or withdrawal with unclear reasons. He had a loss via unanimous decision versus Marvin Vettori in October from 2021. After drama over the weight class in which the fight was supposed to take, they finally fought at light heavyweight. His last fight to date happened in August from 2022, where he won via unanimous decision versus Luke Rockhold. He was supposed to face Khamzat Chimaev last October, but again an injury. But this time it was an infection that led him to the hospital. If Costa is 100% healthy, and it seems to be the case this time, he'll definitely have the power advantage. The power is not enough to get rid of someone as well-rounded and experienced as Robert Whittaker. I'm actually seeing a scenario where Whittaker is going to throw a lot of volume of striking, maybe throw some takedowns as well, and win by unanimous decision. But he has to respect Costa's power and keep his guard up to avoid getting rocked. But still, the Reaper for me, guys. Number 2, Merab Dvalishvili vs Henry Cejudo, main card of the UFC 298 in Anaheim on the 17th. A shock of bantamweight wrestlers. First we have Merab Dvalishvili, 33 years old. He entered the UFC in 2017 after only 8 pro fights. But he had a tough beginning, 2 losses in a row, including an unfair stoppage versus Ricky Simon. and then he rolled on every opponent thanks to his great conditioning and amazing wrestling skills. He's called a machine for a reason. He compiled 9 wins between 2018 and 2023, every time dominating performances, including those versus Brad Katona, John Dodson, Cody Stamann, Marlon Moraes, Jose Aldo, and more recently Petroyan. He was kind of the boogeyman from the bantamweight division. Some fighters were clearly avoiding him, and he was stuck in that role because his teammate Aljamain Sterling was the champ and he didn't want to face him. But now that Aljo moved up, the path is clear for Merab, but he'll have to face Henry Cejudo to get a title shot. Henry Cejudo, Triple C, 37 years old, former Olympic gold medalist in wrestling back in 2008. He transitioned to MMA in flyweight in 2013 and entered the UFC a year and a half later with perfect record of 6-0. And he got 4 wins in a row in less than a year, including a win over Jussier Formiga. That got him a title shot versus Mighty Mouse Johnson in April from 2016, but he got knocked out in round 1. He tried to bounce back in December from the same year, but he lost by a split decision versus Joe Benavides. He came back better than ever. He KO'd Wilson Reis in September from 2017 and dominated Sergio Perez in December from 2017. Thanks to those performances, he got a rematch versus Johnson in August of 2018. And this time he won by split decision in a really disputed contest and became the new flyweight champion. He defended it against TJ Dillashaw in January of 2019 and he knocked him out in the first round. Then he went up to bantamweight in June of 2019. He snatched the vacant belt, winning by a TKO against Marlon Moraes in round 3, becoming a 2-division champ. He defended his bantamweight belt a year later versus Dominic Cruz and won by a TKO in round 2. He chose to step out of the game for a while, but I think he regretted it and missed it because he came back 3 years later, directly getting a title shot versus Aljamain Sterling in May from last year, but he came up short, losing by a split decision. In my opinion, the winner from that one should clearly be the next in line for a title shot. And it's difficult to say who will win in that one. Cejudo definitely have the experience, but he has a history of injuries in his career and also only one fight in the last 3 years. I would risk picking Merab on that one. The guy is consistent, he has a great cardio and conditioning, he's powerful, and he made a lot of progress in the striking department. I think he will win via decision, but it will be really close. And finally, my number 1, Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria. Main event of the UFC 298 in Anaheim on the 17th, and that's for the featherweight championship. Best fight in my opinion, a championship fight and clash between 2 of the best fighters of their generation, at least in this weight class. I'm not gonna go back on Volkanovski's journey. I previewed a few of his fights on this channel, so I'm gonna go to the point. Volk has 15 UFC fights, 13 and 2. Only fighter to beat all the way at featherweight, and he did it 3 times. He beat Jose Aldo, Brian Ortega and Korean Zombie. And he tried to achieve even more greatness last year, moving up to lightweight to face Islam Makhachev in February. He delivered a great performance, but he lost by a unanimous decision. 5 months later, he came back to featherweight to defend his title and beat Yair Rodriguez by TKO. And to conclude the year, he jumped on a 10 days notice to face Islam Makhachev again at lightweight in October. But this time it didn't go well, he got KO'd in the first round by the champ. But still, he's arguably the best featherweight ever. He's still undefeated in that division at the UFC. He's 35 years old, he's in a great shape, he fought 3 fights last year, he's huge for a champion, he's highly skilled and he's experienced. He will now face the new sensation of the featherweight division, Ilia Topuria. El Matador is 27 years old, 14-0, 12 finishes. He entered the UFC in 2020, beating Youssef Zalal in October by unanimous decision and Damon Jackson only 2 months later by TKO. Then he continued his ascension and crushing his opponents. He TKO'd Ryan Hall in July from 2021, KO'd Jay Herbert in March from 2022, choked Bryce Mitchell in December from 2022, and dominated Josh Emmett for 5 rounds in June of 2023. He is often described as a wrestler and a grappler, but I think he is really complete. He proved it versus Josh Emmett. He has a great cardio, he's super strong, and I think he's the real deal. But with that being said, let's put some respect on Volk. Let's not resume his career at 2 losses versus Makhachev. Topuria is a high-level opponent, but he never faced someone like Volkanovski before. I'm not saying he could not beat him, but he's in for a different kind of fight. I don't see Ilya being able to finish him, and Volk is really experienced on 5-round fights. So I'll side with the champ on that one by decision, but Topuria is the future of the featherweight division and he will be the champion one day. Of course, there are a lot of other good fights this weekend. First, at the UFC 298, we have Geoff Neal versus Ian Gary, 2 top 10 welterweights. I'm really curious about that one. We have Hernandez versus Kopilov at middleweight, Amanda Lemos versus Mackenzie Dern, also Rinya Nakamura, who really impressed me in his last fight, and he will face Carlos Vera. At One Fight Night, Jonathan Haggerty will defend his Muay Thai Bantamweight world title versus Felipe Lobo. At KSW 91, we have an interim lightweight title on the line with Leo Brista that will face Valerio Mircea. And a good rematch between Adrian Curiel and Sivenati Nontshinga for the IBF World Light Flyweight title in Mexico. Mauricio Lara will face Daniel Lugo in the co-main event. And that's a wrap. Now you know what to watch this weekend, guys. As usual, punch those like and subscribe button, it helps me a lot. Go hit the comments, Discord, Telegram and Instagram with your thoughts and picks on the coming matchups. Enjoy the fights, I'll see you next week.
They wouldn't let me. Man's gal wanna come undress me. Swing with a right, but I might go lefty. I made plus with it, so don't test me. They wouldn't let me. Man's gal wanna come undress me. Swing with a right, but I might go lefty. I made plus with it, so don't test me. Nah, you don't impress me.